أهلا بكم مشاهدينا في هذه المقابلة الخاصة مع العضو الجمهوري البارز في لجنة الشؤون الخارجية في مجلس النواب الأمريكي جو ويلسون. Congressman Wilson, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Let's first take advantage of your expertise and insights in the region and ask you, how realistic do you think this plan by President Trump to relocate Palestinians from Gaza and take control of Gaza?
Well, indeed, I've had the honor of being the chairman of the subcommittee on the Foreign Affairs Committee for the Middle East and North Africa. And from that, I've developed a great fondness, of course, for the people of the Middle East and North Africa. And indeed, I was in Tunis in 2019. What a wonderful visit I had with wonderful people. And then going to that specific issue, we would really be, I would be very much following the advice of our allies. It would begin, I met a few minutes ago with the ambassador from Saudi Arabia. We would want their advice on how to handle this particular issue. Also, Turkey, which has been a member of NATO for over 70 years.
Do you think they are capable of providing a more viable alternative?
Yes. And so I believe that they will give insight in what the president proposed. He's a negotiator. We know that. He's the deal maker, the art of the deal. And so he will be making a proposal that's somewhat remarkable, but it's to begin the process of trying to identify a way to provide for truly the people of Gaza to not be under the control of the terrorists, the Hamas, that have so persecuted and oppressed the people of Gaza. And indeed, the region itself, it could be, over the years, seeing how beautiful it is on the Mediterranean, that could be so positive, and I'm just so hopeful for the people of Gaza. I'm hopeful for the Palestinian people, but a way to do this is we'll be working with our allies. I was really honored to be with King Abdullah also this week, and over again, there's a great affection in America for the people of the Middle East.
So far, King Abdullah, the president of Egypt, Abdel Fattah Sisi, they openly said they're not willing to take in Palestinians as Mr. Trump wants, as President Trump wants. These countries, President Trump says that they receive billions of dollars from the United States. Would you support cutting aid to these countries if they continue to refuse taking in Palestinians?
And I don't believe that would be necessary. We're in a negotiating stage, and nobody negotiates like Donald Trump. And so, but that does, I do not believe it will lead to cut off of aid to such a very significant ally of the United States, being Egypt itself.
And do you think if by the deadline on Saturday, if Hamas does not release all the hostages as President Trump put an ultimatum for that on midday Saturday, do you think the ceasefire should be revoked?
It would be, and it's up to Hamas itself, and they must release the hostages. The president has made this perfectly clear. Hey, we're talking about 6 or 7 Americans too, who are part of the hostage group, and then horribly, possibly several have been executed already. And so President Trump is not fooling around. And so what he means is noon on Saturday. I look at noon, I think Eastern time, maybe 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock European and North African time, but whatever the time is, Donald Trump means it. And because he wants the hostages released, he sees the horror of what's occurred. He sees the few hostages that have been released, how mistreated they were. And so this needs to end. We need to have hostages released. We need to reduce the level of tension and conflict. And hey, let's go back to what it is. It's the regime in Tehran. They are the directors of, people call Hamas proxies, I call them puppets. That is, they are really Tehran acting against the people of Israel, but actually working against the interests of the people of the Middle East. And we're talking about with Hamas, with Hezbollah, with Houthis. Indeed, it's all directly related to the regime in Tehran. And I'm just confident that President Trump is going to make every effort, and he's already done it this week, an executive order of maximum pressure. He promised that in the campaign. Watch Donald Trump. He actually follows through. Promises made, promises kept. He promised there would be maximum pressure against the regime in Tehran with the hope one day, as we have had past. Iran, we're talking about ancient Persia. We're talking about a culture that should be free and should be one contributing to world culture.
He also expressed openness for a new deal, non-nuclear deal with Iran. Do you think Iran is predisposed after losing so many of its proxies in the Middle East? Or do you think Mr. Trump, President Trump, is in a better position today to impose new conditions, new terms for a deal with Iran?
I do, but additionally, though, we see with the Iran nuclear deal that was JPOA, which was absurd, that it was really not verifiable. And so if there's a new agreement, it must be verifiable. And I'm confident, again, that Donald Trump is not going to get into an agreement like President Obama did. It's going to be whatever the agreement is, and the hope is there would be an agreement. But there would have to be specific verification by independent. Actually, hey, this is Donald Trump. He would want American inspectors to make sure that there's not a development, because we know that a nuclear Iran will be a threat to Saudi Arabia, a threat to Turkey. We know that indeed the regime in Tehran has said death to Israel, death to America. The way to do that is to have a nuclear capability, and also it'd be a threat to all of our allies and the wonderful Gulf allies that we have. I've just had wonderful visits, whether it be Kuwait or to Bahrain. I've had wonderful visits to Qatar, and just over and over again, we really treasure our association with the countries of the Middle East and North Africa. And I always like to point out something I learned, okay? One time I was in Bahrain, I found out the relationship of America with the Middle East is not new. In the 1890s, it was non-proselytizing missionaries from America that built the first schools and hospitals in Bahrain. Okay, over and over again, and then we think about the development of the oil resources of Saudi Arabia. Hey, that was America coming in for mutual benefit, and when I point this out, it's mutual benefit to the countries that we work with, which is the exact opposite of what the Chinese Communist Party does. It's the exact opposite of what war criminal Putin does.
Moving on to a subject closer to your heart and the country closer to your heart, Tunisia.
Yes, yes.
Your recent statements have withdrawn a lot of attention. It made you famous in North Africa. What prompted this strong stance against the president of Tunisia,
Well, it was really the disappointment. Here we have a country, okay, in 2011 that was the hope of the Middle East, the Arab Spring. And then we saw its fruition. We saw America working with the people of Tunisia, seeing it develop in a very positive way. And then, sadly, 2019, Kais Saied came to power. And then in the meantime, he has become increasingly dictatorial. And what really prompted me was the sentencing of the former prime minister, sentencing the former speaker of the parliament. And then we see the arbitrary arrest across the country, particularly of journalists. And so this is really antithetical to the interests of the people of Tunisia. It's antithetical to stability and progress in North Africa.
How do you respond to claims, arguments from Kais Saied and his government that he's fighting corruption?
No, well, hey, the way you fight corruption is to have rule of law. And so I would urge him to have rule of law, and he's the constitutional attorney himself. And so to me, you have rule of law where it's clear and transparency. And so that if there is corruption, and when we know, hey, when there is corruption, that it can be thoroughly investigated, and then it can be thoroughly presented to a court so that it's not an arbitrary arrest.
What tools does the United States have? Let me ask you first, did you have any contacts to convey these concerns to this government in Tunisia? And what tools did the United States have to influence the trajectory of human rights and democracy in Tunisia?
Well, but we've already seen Millennium Challenge has cut off the aid. The United States Agency of International Development is now being thoroughly examined by the Trump administration, and there's corruption there in America. that has to be uncovered. But in the last year, $167 million was provided by American taxpayers to benefit the people of Tunisia, whether it be military or social programs. And so I would foresee that unless there's a fair and free elections, and the last elections were not fair, we already know 30% of the people participated. That's an indication by itself that they were not fair. But the bottom line is that we would be supporting fair and free elections for the people of Tunisia.
Financial pressures or sanctions historically don't work in these kind of situations. And I would ask, how concerned are you that what could be perceived as a foreign interference from the United States would probably boost Said's popularity in Tunisia?
Well, I would hope that, again, the people of Tunisia see that our interest is for them. As we've successfully been able to get the information to the people of Syria, that we were supporting a fair and free country there. And we've seen the removal of the Assad dictatorship. I just see this as a positive move for all of the Middle East, indeed, that American influence is not interference. What we hope is fair and free elections. We want, as we have experienced ourselves over the last 250 years, we benefited from fair and free elections, and we make and we mature at different times. And America, I'm just so grateful, has had the success we've had. But we want that for other countries. But it's from the people in the country. It's not to be installed. And when you mention interference, interference is war criminal Putin and the corruption that he promotes in different countries, whether it be Moldova or whether it be in the Republic of Georgia. We see the interference by the Chinese Communist Party with, again, the corruption that when they come with their, quote, port developments or whatever they're doing, the Chinese Communist Party has a goal, and that's world domination.
What is the extent of this involvement of Kais Saied with these foreign adversaries to the United States, Russia, China, and Iran? You've expressed concerns about that. What's the extent of this involvement, and what concerns did it pose for the United States?
Well, the bottom line, we want the people of Tunisia to be running their country, not interference. We're happy to give advice, but not to promote dependency or actually create dependency. The American view of foreign policy is partnerships with our allies to see them benefit. I think of the opportunities I've had to work with in Bulgaria, of all things, a country that was so backward. Now it's one of the most positive and developed countries of Europe, and I've worked very closely with South Korea to see over and over again our relationship. And then, hey, way before me, to see what America did with the Marshall Plan to bring back Germany, to bring back Italy, to the American experience of bringing Japan. Okay, you can look worldwide. We've worked to help countries that were enemies of America become partners, not subservient, not dependent. Another country, my father served in India during World War II. And so to see now India, the world's largest democracy, and Prime Minister Modi is visiting with President Trump today. And again, to show how open America is, the second lady of the United States is an Indian American. And so over and over again, you can see the relationships that we have with the people of North Africa, Middle East, South Asia, and just over and over again, I'm quite an optimist, as you can tell.
Given the proximity of Europeans and the historical ties they have with North Africa and Tunisia, what role do you see for Europeans to join you in these efforts to sort of influence the course of democracy and human rights?
Well, it's exciting to me to see the European Union and to see the success of the European Union in Brussels. It's just remarkable. I've had the opportunity to visit with so many parliamentarians and to see the success, to see the former communist countries like Poland. Poland now has the second fastest growing economy on earth. Okay, it didn't start that way. And so how exciting. And then NATO. I'm very, very grateful that one of the unintended consequences of what war criminal Putin did is that he actually encouraged Sweden to give up 200 years of neutrality to become part of NATO. He claimed that he did not want to have a NATO country adjacent to the Russian Federation. Well, he does. It's called Finland, 830 miles. And so over and over again, the unintended consequence of what the dictators have done, whether they be in Tehran, whether they be in Moscow or Beijing, they've actually energized and the people of Europe. And then President Trump, it should not be misunderstood. When he comes across as urging our European allies to increase their defensive capabilities, he means it beneficial for them. And it's beneficial for us, but it's beneficial for Europe.
Moving on to the East and Syria, how satisfied are you so far with the actions that this new government has taken? And do you think you are in a place now where you would recommend lifting sanctions or recognizing?
I'm very much happy to see that worldwide there have been different conferences. There's one in Paris today of different countries coming together to work with a new government in Damascus. But I do want to give credit to Saudi Arabia, to Turkey, working together and not to take over or make dependent Syria, but to see Syria become a free and independent country. And another point too, I was really grateful to meet with Her Highness the Ambassador from Saudi Arabia a few minutes ago, and they are very supportive of working to get free and fair elections as soon as possible.
Do you think the United States should recognize Ahmad Shara as president of Syria now?
I do, and I think that it's now time to encourage in every way and then lift sanctions. And then we've seen the horror of the Assad regime. Half of the population of Syria has been dislocated. 12 million people lost their homes. I mean, it's inconceivable. And then you see the total destruction of Aleppo. You see the destruction that has occurred in coordination with war criminal Putin, in coordination with the regime in Tehran. And now the Russian Navy base, the Russian Air Force base, they're closed, they're being moved, and the IDF has fled Syria. So there's a positive movement in the Middle East toward rule of law.
Do you think the United States should keep troops in Syria?
No, we don't need to. We'll be working with our allies to ultimately replace the troops. And the intent of President Trump is to work with our allies in different countries and to have military presence of our allies who are very capable. And we know that Turkey as a member of NATO. And we want to work with the government of Iraq to indeed reestablish independence within Baghdad.
Two questions, and then one question on Lebanon. What do you think the United States should do to sort of support this government and sustain the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah?
Well, back with the Lebanon, it's really important to me. I have a significant Lebanese American community in my district. They are thrilled at the change in government there in Lebanon, and with the hopes of indeed Beirut coming back to life. And so I'm confident that America will be working with the new government in Lebanon, and also will be working to maintain a ceasefire with Hezbollah.
And you just mentioned Iraq, and we noticed a different language from the Trump administration towards Iraq. Adam Bowler, the representative for hostage affairs, he had like strong language against the Prime Minister of Iraq. And do you think, what do you think do you think this approach is an effective approach in dealing with the government of Iraq?
What I really see, the future of Iraq is going to be so much dependent on a change in Iran. And then it's very personal to me. My two oldest sons actually served in Baghdad, served in Iraq during the war, and they developed a great affection for the people of Iraq. And so we want truly Iraq to be a free country, a dynamic country, but they're under the undue influence, obviously, of the regime in Tehran. And so much, everything that we're talking about, whether it be Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthi, or Iraq, all relate back to the octopus, the evil octopus in Tehran.
One last question about USID, just because today there was a hearing about the USID in the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I want to ask you that this agency has long been an effective tool in soft power and American diplomacy around the world. How do you think this shakeup would change its mission in the world and the way how it's perceived in the world?
Well, it's going to go back to the original mission. I've actually seen USAID projects that are so positive to see the clasped hand of the United States and another country, of a school, of a road, of a bridge. That's what they should be doing. And sadly, it was subverted by far left persons in our country to actually promote a woke ideology, which is actually devastating to humans, and it's really deranged. And so the good news is, with the Trump administration, the era of woke ideology is being, if people want to live that way, fine, but not to impose it on others. And so I see USAID, and hey, what a leader we have with Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. His family, hey, he understands. His family had to flee communist Cuba. And so he understands the danger of totalitarianism. You don't have to explain it to him. And he understands that USAID should be what's called soft power, and that is working with our allies to develop their economies to, hey, I saw it firsthand, working with farmers on the latest agricultural techniques and equipment. And so over and over again, that's what USAID should be doing.
Congressman Wilson, we appreciate you.
No,
we appreciate your time.
Thank
you for speaking to us.
Hey, we wish the best for the people of North Africa and for Tunisia and, hey, the entire region, the Middle East. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. بهذا تنتهي هذه المقابلة الخاصة مع العضو الجمهوري البارز في لجنة الشؤون الخارجية في مجلس النواب الأمريكي جو ويلسون. شكرا على المتابعة واللقاء.